Good evening, I'm the Mainly Digger, and this video is about the Knights of the Golden Circle in Maine, possibly, and a connection that I found, or a couple of connections I found. They're all very loose. Just watch the video. But this video is the second part of my secret societies in Maine. The KKK and this video were once one large video, and I had to split them up because it was over 40 minutes long. This is my introduction, and it needed to be explained somewhat because it would have been confusing. So if you find some parts confusing in this video, my apologies. I'm going to talk about is the Knights of the Golden Circle. It's predominant before, and during, and after the Civil War, mainly during the Civil War. The Golden Circle being like the Caribbean islands. They wanted slavery. They wanted slave-owning states, and they wanted to take over the Union and make it a predominantly slave trading state. Spies everywhere, and that's what interested me. I've kind of been obsessed with them for the past since the 90s. This is say the 90s. I don't know. I saw it like In Search of or one of those things, and it mentioned treasure. So I was automatically, I love treasure. I like metal detecting, stuff like that. So it caught my eye, and the research that I've done has been because of that, because of the Knights of the Golden Circle. While I was in Pennsylvania, I went to Chambers. It was the Chambersburg jail, and it'd been a jail since the it'd been a jail since before the Civil War. And I saw a symbol that I recognized, and it was an anchor. I don't know what the anchor means in the Knights of the Golden Circle, but it means something, and it kind of sparked my interest in their activity in that area. I couldn't really connect anything, and I couldn't connect the anchor and the jail to the Knights of the Golden Circle, but it was fun to research. It was fun to get in depth into a secret society, finding out little different bits of information and understanding the history of the area in Chambersburg. Chambersburg, if you don't know, is right on the Mason-Dixon line, and it was like one of the first steps, one of the slaves on the Underground Railroad. And there's lots of Underground Railroad history in Chambersburg. Awesome, look into it. It's a good time. What also connects Chambersburg to Maine, or the Underground, is that Maine was the last stopping point to Canada. In fact, in Maine, there were some towns formed after that. It was just all freed slaves. Like this, they were secluded. They wanted to be left alone. And it was all freed slaves. It was just interesting history, interesting Maine history. I don't really know that much about that, but I was trying to connect, and I always wondered if the nice people were in Maine at one time, because they had spies everywhere. They had people everywhere that they could go and be like, hey, yeah, go check this out. Go sit and be a school teacher and find out what information you can take in, or army and see tell us what you see. There were spies, and that is a proven fact. That secret society, I love learning more about that secret society, their influence on society. So our first connection, and it's a weak connection, so bear with me, but it's a cool connection, is Albert Pike, who is one of the founders of the Knights of the Golden Circle, and he was a third-degree Mason, and is the connection to the Freemasons. Freemasonry was huge back in those days. It's still big in some parts of the United States, but not as big. It was huge. He he set up the structure of the Knights of the Golden Circle like the Freemasons, and it's Knights of the Golden Circle is pretty much during the Civil War. It was the southern branch. That there's a huge divide in Freemasonry, and that's the southern part. That's the Confederate part. I won't even say southern. It's the Confederate theory ideas were all in the Knights of the Golden Circle. What's funny, and it's the weak connection, is that Albert Pike was born in Boston, so he was connected to Boston. He was connected to the North. Maine at that time was a part of Massachusetts and hadn't gained its statehood yet. So that is the weak connection that I have there. It's an interesting connection, and Albert Pike's an interesting person, and how he is connected to the Freemasons, and how he set it up. That's the cool part. He set it up. And while I was in Pennsylvania, I was trying to make the connection between Freemasons and the Knights of the Golden Circle, and I asked multiple different Masons, and they told me about Freemasonry, but they didn't, like, they avoided the Knights of the Golden Circle like it was the plague. They would not answer that question at all. They answered it with another question, or another answer. They asked a question and they answered their own question. It was just interesting how they reacted, and so that's our first one. So our next link is a direct link between Maine and the Knights of the Golden Circle. His name is Charles Henry Foster, who, I don't know if it was before or after the Civil War, was an editor for the Portland Press Herald, or not the Portland Press Herald. It wasn't called that back then, but the newspaper turned into the Portland Press Herald throughout time. Anyway, he wrote an article. He wrote multiple articles. He edited multiple articles for that newspaper and that company. But he's from Maine, like born and bred in Maine. He was also a lawyer. He moved down to North Carolina, where he had multiple failed runs for different positions in Congress and legislature. He was known as a unionist. And then it came out later that he was part of the Knights of the Golden Circle, which is crazy to me, which just proves to me that they had spies and people everywhere. They had networks, which is known they had networks, but they could get places and they can get people to do things that they wouldn't normally do. So that is the direct link. There's no, other than that, I couldn't find anything else on the Knights of the Golden Circle in Maine and in New England, pretty much, like upper New England. But that's, to me, it's a direct link. Like, he's a Mainer. He's from Maine. He grew up here. He has connections to Maine, and I'm pretty sure he came back to Maine. So, and before this or after the Civil War, the Knights of the Golden Circle is thought to have gone underground. And the cool part, I love this part too. The Jesse James gang was thought to be a part of the Knights of the Golden Circle. Jesse James himself was, or in theory was, a part of the Knights of the Golden Circle. And that faction went up into the Midwest, because there's definitely parts of the Knights of the Golden Circle in the Midwest and even in California, which is crazy to me. But Knights of the Golden Circle, that is the connection. Charles Henry Foster is a direct link. I think that's cool.